So, yun ang pinag-aralan natin nung itong sinasabi ni Paul, dinidescribe niya ang tao that at that time may downward progression dahil sa kasalanan. Tapos, kinunclude niya sa lista niya dun sa verse chapter 2 verses chapter 1 verses 23 all the way to 31. In-enumerate niya, kinunclude niya yung mga different kinds of sin na in-indulge ng tao after ni-reject nila ang Panginoon. So, ang inaano naman ni Paul sa chapter 2, pinakita niya na sinasabi niya na wala tayong excuse. Di ba last week sabi ni whoever you are who judge, you are inexcusable dahil nga wala tayong karapatan mag-judge sa ating kapwa dahil tayo mismo makasalanan. So now dito sa verses na ating pag-aaralan sa verses 12 to 29, Apostle Paul now turns to look to those religious people. Ang kausap niya rito yung mga Kristiyano sa Rome na sinasabi niya mga hypocrite kayo kasi ginajudge nyo ibang tao over others. In truth, sabi niya, kayong lahat guilty ng mga kasalanan. So, wala kayong karapatan mag-judge. So, why would anyone of you think that you would escape judgment? Kaya, sabi niya, to presume God's kindness implies that He will never judge us for our own personal sin. Pero God will judge everyone based on the same standard. Kahit Jew ka, kahit Gentile ka, or Greek, you will be judged according to your works, whether good or bad. Yun ang inaano ni Apostle Paul dito. So, Tess, pwedeng ikaw magbasa ng chapter 2 verses 12, umpisa sa verse 12 hanggang verse 21, tapos ako na magtutuloy sa 22 hanggang 29.
Opo.
Romans chapter 2 verses
Okay,
12.
Romans chapter 2 verses 12 to 20 po ako or 21?
21.
So, for as many as have sinned without law will also perish without law, and as many as have sinned in the law will be judged by the law. Verse 13, for not the hearers of the law are just in the sight of God, but the doers of the law will be justified. Verse 14, for when Gentiles who do not have the law by nature do the things in the law, these although not having the law are a law to themselves. 15, who show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts accusing or else excusing them. 16, in the day when God will judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ, according to my gospel, indeed you are called a Jew, and rest on the law, and make your boast in God. 18, and know His will, and approve the things that are excellent, being instructed out by of the law. 19, and are confident that you yourself are guide to the blind, a light to those who are in the darkness, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, having the form of knowledge and truth in the law. 21, you therefore who teach another, do you not teach yourself? You who preach that a man should not steal, do you steal?
Okay, verse 22. You who say do not commit adultery, do you commit adultery? You who abhor idols, do you rob temples? You who make your boast in the law, do you dishonor God through breaking the law? For the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you, as it is written. For circumcision is indeed profitable if you keep the law, but if you are a breaker of the law, your circumcision has become uncircumcision. Therefore, if an uncircumcised man keeps the righteous requirements of the law, will not his uncircumcision be counted as circumcision? And will not the physically uncircumcised, if he fulfills the law, judge you who, even with your written code and circumcision, are a transgressor of the law? For he is not a Jew who is one outwardly, nor is circumcision that which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew who is one inwardly, And circumcision is that of the heart in the spirit, not in the letter, whose praise is not from man, but from God. Praise the Lord for His word. So makita natin dito, for as many have sinned and without the law will also perish without the law, and as many as have sinned in the law will be judged by the law. So dito, Apostle Paul wants to speak to those who are under the law. Yung mga Jew kasi under the law sila, those who practice Judaism. So Paul wants to speak to those. They will not be protected from God's judgment because they have the law or because they are circumcised. Sabi ni Paul dito. It's important to remember that Apostle Paul speaks from his personal experience. Kasi si Apostle Paul, he was a former Pharisee. At saka siya talagang sumusunod sa law ng Judaism. So, he was speaking from experience. Kaya sabi niya, for as many as have sinned without the law will also perish without the law. And as many as have sinned in the law will be judged by the law. So, the religious person, ang sinasabi ni Paul dito, the religious person may think that he is saved because he has the law. Yun ang isip ng mga Israelites noon. Oh, nasa amin ang law. Pinadala sa amin ni Moses ang 10 Commandments. So we are saved because we have the law. Pero sabi dito, the religious person may think that he is saved because he has the law. But ang tanong ni Paul, do you have the law but did you keep it? Did you follow the law? Kaya sabi niya ito, yes, you have the law but did you keep it? The Gentiles, ang sinasabi naman, the Gentiles may think that he is saved because he does not have the law. Pero sabi ni Paul dito, kahit wala kang batas, tayo mga hindi Jew, wala sa atin yung law of Moses, yung commandments, but mayroon tayong konsensya. Ang Panginoon, binigyan tayo ng conscience. God gave us the conscience. People will be condemned not because they have or they do not have the law. People will be condemned because they have sinned. Yan ang sinasabi ni Paul dito. For when Gentiles do not have the law, by nature do the things in the law because these, although not having the law, are a law to themselves. Who should the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience. So, tayo mga hindi Jew, ang Jew kasi nasa kanila yung batas. Nung panahon pa ni Moses, panahon pa ni Abraham. Sa atin, mga hindi Jew, sasabihin natin, hindi ako pwedeng i-condemn kasi wala akong kaalaman dun sa law. Pero sabi ng Panginoon ito, the works of the law were written in your hearts. In verse 15, who showed the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience, also bearing witness and between themselves their thoughts. So, nung nilikha tayo ng Panginoon, in-instill sa ating conscience with ang right or wrong, moral or immoral. So, hindi natin pwede sabihin na, hindi natin alam. We don't know about the law. The law were given to Israelites, not to the Gentiles. Pero sabi ng Panginoon, sabi ni Paul dito, no, you are not exempted. Even if you do not have the law, God instilled in your hearts. The law was written in your hearts. So, that is the conscience. So, a religious person may think that he is saved because he has the law. But the question is he keeping the law? Are you following the law? Tayo mga hindi Jew, sasabihin natin, I am saved because I do not have the law. But the problem is, has you keep the dictates of your conscience? Like Paul said, people will be condemned, not because they have the law or because they do not have the law. People will be condemned because we are all sinners. Sabi nga rito sa verse 17, indeed you are called a Jew and rest on the law and make your boast in God. Every boast of a Jewish man concerns the position of the law. Lahat nagmamayabang sila. Because I have the law, so I will be saved. We are a chosen people. We are a chosen generation. Pinili kami. Yan sinasabi ng Diyos. So, saved kami dahil pinili kami. Pero sabi ni Paul dito, no. You will still be condemned if you do not keep the law. So, in verse 18, sinasabi dito, and know His will and approve the things that are excellent, being instructed out of the law, and are confident that you yourself are a guide to the blind, a light to those who are in darkness. So, sabi nga ni Paul dito, you have the law, but do you keep it? You can see others, you break the law. Do you see how you break it also? Mayroon kang hindi sumusunod sa law, ikaw rin hindi ka rin sumusunod. So, you are condemned. You will be condemned. Sinasabi niya hanggang dito, you're an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, having the form of knowledge and truth in the law. You therefore who teach another, do you not teach yourself? You who preach that a man should not steal, do you steal? You who say do not commit adultery, do you commit adultery? You who abhor others, do you rob temples? You who make your boast in the law, do you dishonor God through breaking the law? So, the name of God, Paul reminds the Jews that God said in the Old Testament that the failure of the Jew to obey the law causes Gentiles to blaspheme God. Kaya, God's righteous judgment is not withheld because someone has heard the law. Tayo naman mga hindi Jew, although not having the law, are a law to ourselves. Paul explains why tayo mga Gentiles can be condemned without the law. Dahil ang conscience nga natin, work that are written in our hearts. Those conscience that we have is enough to condemn us. Yung conscience natin, pag hindi natin sinunod, yung moral and immoral, right and wrong, is enough to condemn us. Kaya hindi mo pwede sabihin na, oh, hindi ko alam yung batas niyan, hindi ko alam yung ano, but it is written in our hearts. Sabi nga sa verse 14, it is a law to themselves. Ang mga Kristiyano, obedient tayo sa ating konsensya. The work of the law residing in our hearts. Sa ating konsensya. So sabi dito, their thoughts accusing or excusing them. Accusing or excusing them. Sabi nga sa verse 15. Their thoughts are accusing or excusing them. In theory, ang tao might be excused by obeying his conscience. Unfortunately, lahat ng tao, every man has violated his conscience. Just as every man has violated the law of God. So, the day when God will judge, no man will escape. Sabi sa verse 16. The day when God will judge, no man will escape God's judgment by claiming ignorance of the law. Pagdating ng judgment, no one can escape. According to my gospel, sabi ni Paul sa verse 16, in the day when God will judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ, according to my gospel. Notice that the day of judgment was already a part of Paul's gospel. Maalala mo yung chapter 1 verse 16? Sabi ni Paul, for I am not ashamed of the gospel. Sabi niya, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes. So sabi niya, itong according to my gospel, ang judgment of God will be according to the gospel. My gospel, sinabi ko na sa inyo, doon sa verse 1, chapter 1 verse 16. For it is, sabi niya, for I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation. So ngayon wala tayong ligtas, wala tayong dahilan. Wala na tayong reason para sabihin natin na hindi natin alam. Kasi sabi ni Paul, according to my gospel. Sinabi na niya, according to my gospel. According to my gospel. So wala tayong ligtas. Kaya ngayon, ano ang halaga? So is there any value in the law? Paul lists several good things that the Jews have because they have the law. Ang mga valuable and mga good things na mayroon ang Jew because they have the law, they are included as God's chosen people. Now, pinagmamayabang nila yon. They are the chosen generation. They are the chosen people. They would say that God is one true God, knowing God's will, serving as a guide to the blind. Sabi nila, kami ang guide sa mga Gentiles kasi nasa amin ang batas. We are a guide to the blind. We are teaching children and the foolish the truth. Having built his Jewish readers up with impressive list, however, Apostle Paul finally turns it around on them. Sabi ni Paul, yeah, you have the law, you have all these things. Then why don't you follow the law? Mayroon pala, nasa inyo pala ang law. Then why don't you follow the law? Apostle Paul, his point in having the law of Moses is no good. Sabi niya, it's no good in the end if you do not keep it. that law is useless if you don't keep it, because law breakers dishonor God. Sabi nga dito, oh, you do not teach yourself, you preach that a man should not steal, but you steal. Do not commit adultery, but you commit adultery. You abhor idols, but you rob temples. Kasi nung mga panahon na yan, minsan nag-ano sila sa temple, ninanakaw nila yung mga ribulto doon. So sabi ni Paul, you have the law, but why don't you follow the law? His point is that having the law of Moses, mayroon silang batas, in the end, if you don't keep it, then you dishonor God. Jewish people should not think that God will spare them from judgment, because they have the law, or because they are circumcised. Sabi nila, mamaya pag-usapan natin yung ibig sabihin ng circumcision. So sabi ni Paul, circumcision is valuable still, but only for those who keep the law. Kahit na circumcised ka, if you do not keep the law, it's nothing. Pero mayroon mga Gentiles na hindi are circumcised, pero pag sinunod nilang batas, then they are like the Jew. They are like circumcised. So if an uncircumcised Gentile were to keep the law, God would regard that person as if he were a Jewish person. Ang circumcision kasi, isang ritual, it's an ethnic and religious ritual as a sign of covenant with God. That was ordered by God during the times, even panahon pa ni Abraham yun, inutos na sa kanila yun, na kailangan ang mga Jew circumcised. It signifies an admission of an infant to the covenant relationship with God. Ngayon, ang covenant relationship natin sa Panginoon, baptism na eh. Pero during the time, circumcision, that was an admission of the covenant relationship with God. If you are circumcised, within 8 days, kailangan tuloyin ka. It was a sign for the Jew that you are now having a relationship with God. Now, the ritual is baptism. So, it was signed during the time of Abraham. It was even ordered. It was even ordered during the time na kailangan magpa-circumcise ka. In fact, yung mga Jew, kung malalaman mong istorya ng Jew, nung sila ay naglalakad for 40 years sa disyerto, lahat na umalis sa Egypt noon circumcised. They were circumcised. Pero ang mga pinanganak sa wilderness, habang nagbabiyahe sila for 40 years, hindi circumcised. So sinabi ng Panginoon kay Joshua, pagtawid nyo sa River Jordan, kailangan lahat na hindi circumcised, kailangan i-circumcise nyo muna bago kayo pumunta sa first city na pupuntahan nyo. Pag-cross nyo ng River Jordan, bago kayo pumunta sa first city na inyo iti-take over sa Promised Land, kailangan naka-circumcise kayo, kasi that was at that time a covenant relationship with God. That was a Jewish tradition na kailangan circumcise kayo. Kaya sinasabi dito, therefore, if an uncircumcised man keep the righteous requirements of the law, will not this uncircumcision be counted as circumcision? And will not the physically uncircumcised, if he fulfills the law, judge you who even with your written code and circumcision are a transgressor of the law? So, noong mga time na yon, kailangan circumcise ka. That's the Jewish tradition. That was like now baptism, which starts our relationship, a public acknowledgement of our relationship with God. Kita mo pa nagiging Kristiyano tayo ngayon, kailan ka magpapabaptize, kailan ka magpapabinyag, because that signifies our covenant relationship with God. We publicly acknowledge na talagang kasama na tayo sa Panginoon. Ang pagkakaiba lang, ang baptism ngayon, nagsisignify ng burial at saka resurrection. Cleansing, burial, and resurrection. At that time, Jewish babies were circumcised to signify that they were members of the chosen people of God. So, kaya win-explain dito ni Paul about circumcision and uncircumcision. So, yan, command ng Panginoon yan kay Abraham. Doon pa sa the book of Genesis, kinaman na niya yon, na lahat na Jew kailangan maging circumcised within 8 days after birth. So, yun ang pinapaliwanag ni Paul dito. So, circumcision is valuable but only for those who keep the law. Kahit circumcised ka, kang Jew ka, o kahit baptized kang Kristiyano ka, if you do not keep the law, if you break the law, then as if you are not a Christian. Kahit sabihin mo nagpabinyag ka na, Kristiyano ka, pero kung hindi ka nagbago, then you still break the law, then parang baliwala. Yan ang sinasabi ni Paul. So, circumcision or baptism doesn't save anyone. Circumcision or baptism doesn't save anyone. Circumcision or baptism do about the same thing that a label in a can does. So, kita mo yung label sa mga karne norte natin. Ilagay mo sa label corned beef. Pero kung ang laman ng loob sardinas, something is wrong. Nakalagay label corned beef pero sardinas pa lang laman. Yan ang sinasabi ni Paul. Kahit circumcised ka, pero you break the law, you're nothing. So, ganun din yun. Ang lata ng sardinas, lagyan ng label corned beef, doesn't change anything. So, if the outer label doesn't match with what's on the inside, something is wrong. So, ganun din tayo. It doesn't change what's inside the can. Kung circumcised ka man, kung baptized ka man, pero hindi ka nagbago, it doesn't help. It would not save you. Yun ang sinasabi ni Paul dito. So, sa verse 29, sabi niya, whose praise is not from men but from God. Kasi lahat na signs ng outward signs ng religion may earn as praise from men. Pwede tayong i-praise ng men. O, yung bait-bait naman ni Tess. O, yung bait-bait ni May, ginagawa yun. Pwede tayong mag-earn ng praise sa tao. Pero not all we can get praise from God. Because the evidence of our rightness with God is not contained in our outside works. It's only by the blood of Jesus Christ. If you have a personal relationship with Christ, with Jesus Christ. So yan ang sinasabi ni Paul dito na wala tayong ligtas kahit na under the law tayo, kahit na Jew tayo, kahit na Gentiles tayo, because kung Jew ka, nasa atin ang batas, nasa kanila ang batas. So wala kang ligtas, wala kang dahilan para sabihin mo hindi mo alam. Kung Gentile ka na wala yung law sa'yo, nilagay ng Panginoon sa ating puso, sa ating konsensya kung anong tama at anong mali. So wala ka pa rin ligtas. Hindi ka pwede magsabi na, ay hindi ko alam, kasalanan pala yun. So pinapakita lang ni Paul dito sa lahat na sinasabi niya mula chapter 1, chapter 2, pinapakita lang kung gaano tayo ka makasalanan. Pinapakita lang niya na tayo, parang ano niya to, prelude para sabihin niya pagdating na dito sa chapter 3, no one is righteous, not one. All have turned aside. So parang binibuild up na ni Apostle Paul ang kaso laban sa atin. Wala tayong dahilan para maligtas, wala tayong dahilan para wala tayong excuse para hindi tayo ma-condemn. Tapos pagdating sa verse 3, chapter 3, sabi niya, but the righteousness of God apart from the law is revealed. Yun lang ang makakaligtas sa iyo. So pinapakita, binibuild up na ni Paul ang kaso sa atin lahat na tao, maging Jew, maging Gentiles, na tayo'y lahat makasalanan. We are all sinners. Now without excuse, we will be condemned. We will be judged according to the works. Sabi nga dito, sa judgment, sabi sa Romans chapter 2 verse 2, God's judgment is according to the truth. Sabi sa Romans verse 2, chapter 2 verse 2. But we know that the judgment of God is according to the truth. So sa Romans chapter 2 verse 5, God's judgment is according to your guilt sa puso mo, but in accordance with your hardness of your impenitent heart, sa konsensya mo. Sa Romans chapter 2 verse 6, God will judge you according to your deeds, to your works. Sa Romans chapter 2 verse 11, God's judgment is without partiality. Walang pakialam siya kung Pilipino ka, kung Amerikano ka, kung Jew ka, kung Gentiles. Dahil tayong lahat, we will be judged according to His righteous justice. So walang pakialam. God's judgment is without partiality. Tapos sa Romans chapter 2 verse 13, pinag-aralan natin ngayon, God's judgment is not according to your knowledge. It's according to your performance, how you do good deeds, how you help other people, how you follow the law. It's not according to your knowledge, but according to your performance. So sa Romans